I want to start off by saying that even though I don't make money at all on YouTube, somehow this video is 100% going to be demonetized or will be hated by the algorithm. I want to say shooting guns in VR is really fun, which it is, but let's be honest, sword fighting is way cooler, and if you disagree, you are a liar. There is something about being able to fight with swords and other melee weapons that's just really fun and engaging. My theory on why that is not because when sword fighting, you're constantly using your mind to adapt to your opponent and using strategy to find the perfect moment to counterattack, which in doing so constantly pushes your mind and body to the limit. I think it's because our caveman minds enjoy the endless violence and murder sword fighting has to offer.
Okay, I've been making demonetization jokes, but for real, this is 100% not gonna be okay.
Maybe I'm just a nerd, but nobody can convince me otherwise that blocking someone's attack and then immediately chopping off their arm is just not cool. I'm not trying to say that hitting a cool headshot or just obliterating somebody with a shotgun isn't cool. I just think using something like a dagger to fight someone using a big-ass sword is just much cooler. I just said cool way too many times. Oh my. I don't think I mentioned what game I am talking about yet, but from judging in the title and thumbnail, I am assuming most of you lovely people already know, but just in case you don't know, it is Blade in Sorcery, more specifically, Blade in Sorcery Nomad, which is the Quest version, because I have it on my Quest 2, and I don't really want to purchase it again on my PC. And if you don't know what Blade in Sorcery is, for both versions, Blade in Sorcery is a medieval fantasy sandbox with physics-based melee, ranged, and magic combat. This game has been around for a while and is widely considered one of the best VR games with realistic physics-based fighting. That being said, I do want to make it clear that there are some differences between the Nomad and PC VR versions of the game. The only reason I want to point this out is because I might have some problems with Nomad that the PC VR versions don't, and so I just want to make some big, how do I say this? I just want to make it a thing. Notice it? I don't know the word. I'm making it aware to you and to me. And those changes are reduced graphics. Nomad is missing a map. They also removed some gore and other things to improve performance. There may be some different weapons. However, I don't really know if it's because of mods. Speaking of mods, the PC VR version can handle way more intense mods. As well, there is no guarantee that the two versions will follow the same update path. Again, I just want to point this out because if I have a problem with Nomad, it doesn't necessarily mean I have a problem with the PC VR versions. So here's what I liked about the game. Like what I said earlier, I think the main appeal and fun part about the game is the melee and more specifically the sword combat. In the base game, there are a bunch of different swords and melee options ranging from two-handed greatswords to axes and spears. There is also a bow and different magic and magic staffs. I want to talk about the magic stuff in the bow really quick because as for me, it's not really why I like the game, but it is still important and fun in their own rights. So for magic, there is 3 different magic types: fire, lightning, and gravity magic. Each has their own base spell, and then they also have a double-handed, I'm going to call it super spell, which is an enhanced version of the normal spell.
Bro, it's a Rasengan! Oh, that's more than a Rasengan.
Now with magic staffs, you can imbue those staffs with magic and kind of cast spells. It's all cool. I don't want to like knock it or anything. It is cool. It's just, for me, I like being really physical in my games. And when you're doing magic stuff, you're kind of like far away, if that makes sense. And it's just not really my thing. And the bow, I feel, is pretty similar to magic. However, I want to add hitting headshots is really cool. But when you're aiming, if you are using a VR headset that doesn't use base stations, which is the majority of them out there, aiming when you have your hand back for a prolonged amount of time will just kind of stop working well, and your bow will start to drift, and then it just feels sad and weird. Going back to swords, like I said earlier, I think the main selling point of this game is the sword play. I don't really know how to explain it, but when the game works well, foreshadowing, using the swords to block and attack is just really fun. A large reason I think that the combat feels so good is that similar to real life, each weapon has their own weight, and because of that, each weapon will call for a unique fighting style. An example of this would be that larger swords are heavier and therefore slower to use, and in order to use them properly, the player has to use both hands. On the other side, something like daggers are really light and easy to use, which allows the player to pretty much swing as fast as you want. Essentially, small equals light, which equals easy to use, and heavy equals slow, which equals harder to use. Very similar to real life. There is also climbing in Blade and Sorcery. Almost any surface with a corner in Blade and Sorcery is grabbable, meaning you can climb almost anything. I watched a video recently by this guy, I don't even want to try saying his name, where he goes into depth on why the climbing is really good, and for the most part, I do agree. However, I think the climbing, just like the combat, can feel janky at times, especially when you're trying to lift yourself onto platforms.
Fuck. Grab? Oh my.
And I want to talk about mods really quickly. I know not everyone will use them, but both versions have mod support and a healthy modding community. You can get anything from combat tweaks to lightsabers and anime weapons, and there are a bunch of mods out there, and all of them can greatly change how you play the game. For example, I have a handful of mods that have unique weapons and also improve the fighting experience.
The One Piece! The One Piece is real!
However, there are some problems the game does have that I do want to talk about. Now keep in mind, I'm on Nomad, and some of these may not exist for other versions, but that is the version I played, so I'm going to talk about them. Off the top of my head, I can think of 3 big ones. The physics will glitch.
Who else is alive? You? That is not normal.
The game tends to crash, which is only amplified when using mods.
Oh. It crashed.
And the gameplay can sometimes get repetitive. Unfortunately, I can't see the first 2 problems getting fixed anytime soon unless I decide to move to PC VR or wait for a new standalone VR headset to come out with faster hardware. However, the gameplay can be fixed, and Warp Frog, the studio, has been doing things to improve the game, namely improving combat and adding dungeons. Well, working on adding dungeons. Alone, these updates aren't anything massive, but are really important in making the game fun to repeat. Also, at least in moderation, mods do make the game more fun and exciting to play. Overall, I think the game is really fun. Sword fighting and killing people is really fun and scarily addicting to do. And while I think for the most part the game is really enjoyable, there are some problems that have negatively impacted my play sessions and have had me take a break altogether. I want to give this game 8 baguette swords out of 10 because overall I think the game is really fun. Now, I like almost every game, so take that score with a grain of salt. Thank you if you stuck to the end. I really have been enjoying making these VR videos, so I just want to say thank you if you enjoyed it as well. And if you did and you're not subscribed, please consider subscribing, liking, commenting, notification, all the fun stuff, I guess. And yeah, thank you.
Watch this. Oh my god. That is impressive. Oh my